everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. And today we are basically doing a follow-up video to a follow-up video where I talked about marks and bruising. And what I'd like to discuss here is cupping, because cupping I feel is a very unique, underutilized, definitely lesser known form of BDSM play. I think actually has a lot of very interesting properties to it. Like, for one, it's basically the only form of BDSM play I could think of that's also quite widely used in the vanilla world as a form of alternative medicine. I mean, like, imagine if the US men's Olympic swimming team did flogging instead of cupping as part of their training regimen, or if you had spas that offered like wax play instead of hot stone massages. I mean, it's a very interesting thought experiment. It probably would never happen in reality, but it just goes to show how unique a role that cupping plays in the world of BDSM, because there are so many overlaps there with other vanilla activities that people might be more familiar with. So what I want to do today is go over what cupping is, different forms of cupping, how you can implement it in a BDSM scene, and then just general things to be aware of when it comes to cupping. So if that sounds interesting, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. Now, firstly, a disclaimer here right off the bat, because this is something that's done in the vanilla world as a form of alternative medicine, I want to make sure that I'm being really clear here and that I'm not talking about or purporting the benefits of the medical applications of cupping. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist, I'm not anybody that would have any expertise enough to know whether or not cupping actually has serious medical benefits or not. I am really talking about it as like an enjoyable thing to do as part of a BDSM scene, because I don't really think it matters or not if cupping like improves your long jump performance in a BDSM sense. Like, that's definitely not what we're trying to do here in kink. So just keep that in mind while you're watching this video. I am not talking about cupping as a form of holistic healthcare. I am talking about it purely as an enjoyable form of play, like flogging or spanking would be. Alright, so next, what is cupping? And I think in order to talk about cupping, we need to break it down by its various techniques. The first category is dry or manual cupping. As with all cupping techniques, the idea is to create an area of low pressure or a partial vacuum against the skin, and what that does is it draws the skin up into the cup. That is what creates the bruising as well as the sensation for the cupping itself. This is typically done with either plastic or glass, and with manual cupping, you then have a hand pump that is used to draw out and create that partial vacuum, or some of the smaller sets that are used for the more delicate areas of the body, such as the face, actually have sort of like a little turkey baster looking end to them, where you kind of just use your hands, and that is what actually creates the suction. I really recommend this form for beginners or people who have never experienced it before, because it is quite self-explanatory and it's lower risk than some of the other forms that we're going to talk about next. The next one would be fire cupping. This I would consider like the classic BDSM form of thinking about cupping, because it's quite showy. It's an intersection between obviously cupping and fire play, which can be quite exciting for some people. And with this, the way that you are creating that area of low pressure, you're creating that vacuum, is by lighting a cotton ball on fire using a pure alcohol solution. You're using a pair of forceps with that. You're putting it briefly underneath the cup and then placing the cup directly on top of the skin. Now, this is definitely a more advanced technique. I would not necessarily recommend starting here if you don't have previous experience with fire play, because you can burn yourself, you can burn your partner quite easily, and it's just overall a little bit more complicated. It's also not generally allowed in a lot of dungeons because it involves an open flame, and it can definitely be something that takes a while to get the hang of. And this is also a good time to bring up two different forms of cupping that are generally associated with fire cupping, and that would be static cupping versus gliding cupping. With gliding cupping, what you do ahead of time is you rub massage oil into the part of the body where you will be applying cups, and then once the cups are on, it's a lot easier to move them around the body, so you can actually sort of like stroke the muscles out or change where the sensation is coming from in the body more easily without having to break the seal on the cup. With static cupping though, what you're doing is you are placing the cup on the skin, and it's staying more or less exactly where it's going to be for the duration the cup is on. And generally with static cupping, you will see people apply cups for anywhere from like 3-15, maybe even 20 minutes, but generally not longer than that before the cup comes off. Now, the final category of cupping would be wet cupping, also known as blood cupping. This is the most advanced version of cupping, and like fire cupping, if you don't have previous experience with blood play, it's probably not the best idea to start here first. The concept behind blood cupping is very similar in principle, but what you're doing ahead of time is you're basically creating a prick in the skin where blood is going to be coming out from. Typically that would be with a scalpel or a needle, and then the cup is placed over the incision and that draws blood out from the body. The reason why a lot of people find this appealing is because it creates a very weird situation with the blood where it basically turns the blood to jelly, and for some people that's like a crazy head trip and they really enjoy that, and other people they find it distasteful so they don't do it. It's very much a personal taste sort of thing when it comes to blood cupping, and it can also be like very intense spiritually and emotionally as far as a form of play goes. Now, cupping can actually be done over many different parts of the body. Most commonly, this would be on the back and the butt because that offers the most surface area for this type of play, but you also see people do it on the breasts or the stomach. You also see it on the arms and the legs as well. Some people also do it on the face. I couldn't really find information relating to cupping on the neck or the genitals or the lips, so I would probably avoid those areas unless you were able to do some of your own research and kind of experiment with this first to see if it's in your risk profile to try that. But for my own take, I couldn't really find anything either way to say whether or not it was safe or if it was dangerous, so you're going to have to take that information with a grain of salt. Now, you also need to be aware that cupping leaves marks. I know, what a big shocker. It leaves marks behind. Who would have guessed, Evie? Well, it does. It leaves bruises. Not everybody is down for that. Not everybody wants to have bruises for a long period of time. But if you've never tried it before and you're not sure how your body's going to react, I highly recommend you just try it once and see how it feels before you proceed further, because depending on the individual scene or how intense the seal on the cup was or how long you leave it on for, it could take 2-3 days up to maybe even 2 weeks for the mark to completely fade away. Now, if you've never experienced cupping before, I also really highly recommend, especially if you're a top, to go and get cupping done. Go and see what it feels like. Go and experience it for yourself first, because that is going to be the best way for you to know what to expect when you're actually doing the scene for yourself for the first time. Alright, now that we've talked all about that, why do people actually like cupping? Why in the world would somebody want to have a glass sphere put on their back? Well, it's sort of the same reason as anything else we do in kink, because for some people it's fun, it's interesting, it's new, it's novel, it's something they've never done before, and it definitely has its own sensation to it. Some people find it very relaxing, like a massage. I mean, that's the whole reason why people do it in vanilla land, outside of medical reasons, is because it can provide a very nice, unique form of massage. Other people like it because they enjoy the thrill and the fear that can go along with seeing fire, because it's fire cupping, and that can be really intense psychologically for a lot of people. Other people really like blood play. They like blood cupping because it's another way that they get to play with blood in somebody else's body. And also, at least for me, one of the big advantages of cupping is it's actually marks that you don't exactly have to hide if you don't want to, because it's something that people just do in vanilla world as well. So if you have cupping marks on your back from a scene, you might have somebody that comes up to you and says, "Oh, what are those from?" And you can say, "Oh, I did some cupping." Now, they're probably going to assume that you meant at a spa and not at a dungeon, but it's certainly a lot better than a lot of the assumptions that people make about other marks that you might get on your body from other types of BDSM play. Now, finally, let's talk about some of the ways that you can do cupping in a BDSM scene. The first way, the classic way as I would call it, would be in a sensation play or in a more relaxing form of play. Like I've already mentioned, it can definitely be very much like a sort of massage. I think with cupping, it really lends itself to a sensation play scene where you are also incorporating other elements. So you might have a gliding cupping scene where you are also applying massage oil and doing a body massage. You might want to alternate the intense sucking from the cups with a really light tickling sensation, such as with a feather tickler, or you might want to have the two things go together sensation-wise, such as coupling the intense cupping with another heavier sensation, such as pressure point massage or something else that's also really deep and intensive. Now there's definitely a medical play element here as well that you can use if you enjoy medical play. So for example, using something like a pair of plastic cups with a manual pump as opposed to say fire cupping, which I feel has a little bit less of a medical connotation to it. You can also do things like use a cold metal table or do more dress up elements such as having a surgical mask on or gloves, or having the person who's having the cupping done wear a dressing gown instead of just being totally nude. You can also definitely add in other role play elements such as, explaining the necessity of the procedure in a very cold, matter-of-fact, very doctorly sort of way. You can also take this into a little bit more of a weird medical direction if you really like the role play. So if you're into, say, like alien abduction sort of medical play, or if you're into sort of like government secret experimentation facility. I mean, cupping marks are very strange, and if done properly, you can definitely give somebody a bit of a head trip because they definitely don't look organic or look very natural or like other things that they might have otherwise experienced. And if you're going with the blood cupping route, obviously this is something you can engage in as a form of blood play. Now again, this is really not a 101 topic, so I'm not going to be able to get into it much here, but it can just be very fun to be able to see somebody's blood turn into jelly. It's definitely a very head trippy experience, and if you are into blood play and haven't tried this before, it's certainly worth experiencing. And then finally, there is pain, because if you are a masochist or a sadist, there's always a way to make this sort of thing painful. One way you could do this is by doing the cupping before an impact play scene, because some people report that makes the impact play feel more intense. You could also do it as part of a cool down for an impact play scene or after the impact play scene is done, because if you're putting a cup over an already bruised area, that's probably going to feel very, very intense. And obviously you can do cupping just by itself as well as a way to engage in pain, because you can create a very intense seal, a very tight seal that can feel quite painful, especially if you're just leaving it on one area for 10, 15, 20 minutes and the person can't move, and maybe just occasionally you flick it very lightly. That can produce a very similar response to, say, flicking the clothespins that are on somebody doing a zipper scene. It's something that can just be such a wonderful little little reminder of pain that a lot of people really enjoy, and then the cups themselves again have a very unique, intense sensation. That's everything I wanted to share with you guys today about cupping. Hopefully you found this video interesting and helpful. Links to other resources and videos will be down in the description box below. If you have any other questions and comments, you can leave that down in the comment section below as well. If you like this video, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week about all sorts of BDSM related topics. And finally, if you really enjoyed this, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. Link to that will be down in the description box below. If you already support me over there, thank you so, so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.